Davao City is currently grappling with severe flash floods and river overflows following hours of unrelenting torrential rains triggered by the combined forces of the Easterlies and the Intertropical Convergence Zone, ITCZ. The disaster has left at least one person dead from accidental electrocution, compromised key local infrastructure including a collapsed bridge, and forced hundreds of families into emergency evacuation centers across multiple districts. In immediate response to the growing emergency, the Davao City government declared a suspension of all face-to-face classes and localized government work to ensure public safety and accelerate disaster relief operations. A powerful meteorological convergence has dropped a massive volume of water over the Davao region within a very narrow window. This has resulted in what local residents are calling some of the most rapid and aggressive urban flooding seen in recent months. Low-lying residential areas, critical commercial arteries, and major river systems have breached safety thresholds simultaneously. By the early morning hours of May 19, 2026, floodwaters in multiple barangays had reached anywhere from knee-high to waist-deep levels, trapping vehicles, swamping ground floors, and severing transportation lines. Emergency responders from Central 911, the Philippine National Police, PNP, and various Barangay Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Committees, BDRRMCs, have been deployed in a continuous multi-front evacuation effort. According to the State Weather Bureau, the Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical, and Astronomical Services Administration, the extreme weather event is caused by two overlapping weather systems. A persistent belt of low pressure where winds from the northern and southern hemispheres meet, creating highly unstable atmospheric conditions prone to rapid storm generation. Warm, moisture-laden winds blowing from the Pacific Ocean that have injected massive amounts of convective energy into the local weather pattern. The intersection of these systems, directly over the Davao region, produced hyper-localized, intense thunderstorms characterized by unprecedented precipitation volume. Mountainous and upland catchment areas feeding into the Davao, Matina, and Bunawan River channels experienced uninterrupted heavy downpours throughout the evening of May 18th, forcing an enormous volume of runoff down into the urban plains of Davao City. The geographical impact of the flood spans from northern agricultural districts down to the heavily populated southern residential valleys. The Davao City Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office, CDRRMO, has placed several river systems under Code Red critical level status. The Bunawan River reached critical capacity early in the disaster timeline. Rivers running through Barangay San Isidro and Bunawan proper burst their banks, inundating nearby agricultural lands and spilling into informal settlements along the riverbanks. Preemptive and forced evacuations were executed as the fast-moving water carried large debris, risking structural collapses of riverside homes. In downtown and midtown sectors, stormwater drainage networks were completely overwhelmed. Residents of Belisario Village in the Agdao District reported that floodwaters entered their homes late at night while many were asleep, destroying furniture, appliances, and personal electronics. Meanwhile, major thoroughfares like our Castillo Street turned into literal rivers, with water levels reaching the hoods of compact cars and forcing drivers to abandon their vehicles or execute dangerous U-turns against the current. The Matina River has historically been a volatile catch basin, and this event proved no exception. Elevated to Code Red status, the river sent a massive surge of water downstream into Matina Crossing and Matina Pangi. Emergency sirens were activated sequentially to warn communities to move to high ground immediately. Major traffic gridlocks formed along the main southern highways as bridges were monitored closely for overtopping. The most tragic outcome of the flooding occurred in the early morning hours in Barangay Buhangin. A 21-year-old male victim, originally a native of Manay, Davao Oriental, who was working as a pump boy and renting a home in the city, lost his life. According to reports verified by local police and Central 911 responders, the young man was standing outside his rented home monitoring the rising floodwaters when he came into contact with a live electrical current. The water acted as an immediate conductor, delivering a fatal shock. Rescue teams discovered his body floating in the floodwaters shortly before dawn. Despite being rushed immediately to the Southern Philippines Medical Center, SPMC, attending physicians officially declared him deceased, citing cardiopulmonary arrest secondary to fatal cardiac dysrhythmia from accidental electrocution, compounded by drowning. Hundreds of individuals have been displaced from their homes. In Barangay Matina Pangi alone, emergency forced evacuations moved families from highly vulnerable zones like Purok 3A and Purok 4A into the local barangay gymnasium. Similar crowded scenes have been observed across multiple public gymnasiums and school buildings, repurposed as temporary shelters. Disaster risk management staff are currently working to provide hot meals, dry blankets, potable water, and medical assessments to the evacuees, many of whom fled their homes with nothing but the clothes on their backs. The force of the flash floods has severely tested Davao City's infrastructure, revealing significant vulnerabilities in rural connectivity and urban drainage. In Purok 2, Barangay Callawa, the sheer velocity and volume of the floodwaters proved too intense for local infrastructure. A vital connecting bridge was reported completely washed out and destroyed by the raging currents. The structural failure has effectively isolated several sub-villages, preventing regular vehicular access and making rescue and supply drop-offs significantly more dangerous and reliant on specialized heavy equipment or boats. Compounding the water hazard, the prolonged rain saturated upland soils, triggering a localized landslide in the prestige area of Barangay Cabantian. Heavy mud and debris sloughed down onto residential perimeters, prompting immediate structural integrity assessments by city engineers. Beyond Castillo Street, multiple lanes along JP Laurel Avenue, sectors of the Banquerohan area, and roads bordering Manay experienced profound water accumulation, leaving commuter networks paralyzed for hours. PNP, Chief General Jose Melencio Nartatez Jr., issued a nationwide directive ensuring that police personnel in Mindanao, specifically Region 11, are fully mobilized to assist local government units, LGUs. Police forces are on high alert, working hand-in-hand with barangay officials to identify high-risk pockets, enforce mandatory evacuation orders, prevent looting in abandoned residential sectors, and manage the chaotic flow of traffic away from flooded rivers. To keep citizens off the treacherous roads and allow emergency vehicles unhindered access, the city government implemented a swift suspension of face-to-face classes for all levels in both public and private schools. Non-essential government offices were also closed, pivoting staff toward disaster relief, response operations, and administrative support for the clearing crews. Equipped with rubber boats, life vests, and heavy-duty transport vehicles, teams from the CDR-RMO and Central 911 have been working without pause. Their primary focus remains the extraction of vulnerable demographics, including the elderly, infants, and individuals with disabilities, from flooded households. The city government of Davao continues to emphasize that the situation remains fluid. With the ITCZ still active over Mindanao, additional rain showers could trigger secondary flooding or prolong the stagnation of current floodwaters. Citizens are urged to remain vigilant, keep emergency bags packed, and strictly obey any evacuation alarms sounded by their local BDRRMC. As demonstrated by the tragic incident in Buhangan, hidden electrical hazards, downed power lines, and deep open manholes pose lethal risks. Familiarize yourself with the siren levels. A continuous blast indicates an immediate requirement to evacuate to pre-designated community shelters. Flooding routinely compromises localized water systems. Ensure all consumption water is thoroughly boiled or sourced from sealed, verified bottles to avoid waterborne illnesses. The Davao City DRRMO official Facebook page for real-time river tracking, weather bulletins, and color-coded warning updates. As weather patterns stabilize over the next 24 to 48 hours, city crews will shift focus from active rescue to widespread debris clearing, electrical grid safety restoration, and comprehensive damage assessments. Until then, Davao City remains in a state of heightened caution and communal resilience. A catastrophic convergence of torrential monsoon rains and systemic drainage failures has plunged the Bicutan interchange and adjacent sections of the South Luzon Expressway, SLEX, into a state of total paralysis. Thousands of commuters, logistical vehicles, and private motorists remain stranded in gridlocks extending over several kilometers. The flooding, which witnesses describe as arriving with unprecedented speed, has completely submerged the at-grade sections of the critical southern transport artery, rendering the highway impassable to light vehicles and severely disrupting the economic heartbeat of the capital's southern gateway. The crisis began unfolding in the early hours of the morning as an intense, localized weather system dumped a massive volume of rainfall over Taguig City, Parañaque, and surrounding municipalities. Within hours, the Bicutan area, long recognized as a critical low-lying bottleneck along the SLEX corridor, transformed into a vast, murky lake. The flash floods quickly breached the structural boundaries of the expressway, inundating both northbound and southbound lanes near the Bicutan Toll Plaza, with water levels peaking at heights that completely submerged the tires of large commercial buses and reached the windshields of smaller sedans. Emergency response units from the Metropolitan Manila Development Authority, MMDA, the local government units of Taguig and Parañaque, and the tollway management operators have been deployed to the scene. However, their efforts to manage the crisis are severely hampered by the sheer volume of gridlocked vehicles, which has trapped emergency service trucks in the same paralyzing traffic jams facing ordinary citizens. The impact of the flood is felt most acutely along the SLEX at-grade lanes, particularly underneath the Skyway structure. The southbound lanes approaching the Bicutan exit have borne the brunt of the water accumulation. Eyewitness reports and real-time social media updates present a grim picture of rows of stationary vehicles stretching back as far as the Magallanes and Nichols interchanges to the north, and reaching down to Alabang and Susana Heights to the south. For commuters trapped inside public utility buses and jeepneys, the situation has turned into an agonizing waiting game. Many passengers, realizing that the traffic had come to an absolute standstill, chose to alight from their vehicles and wade through knee-deep, debris-laden floodwaters just to reach the elevated pedestrian bridges or find alternative walking routes out of the flooded zone. "We haven't moved an inch in over 4 hours," said Maria Santos, an office worker traveling from Laguna to her workplace in Makati. "The water rose so fast. One moment it was just a typical rainy morning, and the next, small cars in front of us started stalling out because the water had entered their engines. Now, nobody can move forward, and nobody can back out." Logistical networks have similarly broken down. Delivery trucks carrying vital consumer goods, agricultural products from Southern Luzon, and industrial components destined for the economic zones of Cavite, Laguna, Batangas, Rizal, and Quezon, Calabarzon, are currently frozen in place. Supply chain experts warn that if the flooding does not recede swiftly, the delays will ripple across the retail and manufacturing sectors, causing millions of pesos in operational losses. The recurring nature of the flooding at the Bicutan interchange has reignited fierce public anger and sparked an intense debate between government regulatory bodies, public works departments, and private tollway concessionaires. While the extraordinary volume of rainfall is acknowledged as the immediate trigger, experts point out that the root cause lies in a systemic failure of urban planning and drainage maintenance. According to preliminary statements from the Toll Regulatory Board, TRB, and the Department of Public Works and Highways, DPWH, the primary bottleneck is not the expressway's internal drainage system, but rather the failure of the external municipal drainage networks to absorb and carry away the runoff water. The surrounding topography of Bicutan has undergone rapid, dense commercialization and residential development over the past decade. Large-scale shopping complexes, high-rise residential condominiums, and industrial warehouses have progressively paved over natural floodplains and soil retention areas. Engineering assessments indicate that the outfall channels, the large canals and creeks responsible for carrying stormwater away from the SLEX towards Laguna de Bay, are severely compromised. These channels are choked with thick layers of silt, accumulated uncollected solid waste, and structural encroachments from informal settlements and commercial establishments. When a heavy downpour occurs, these external waterways immediately overflow, causing a massive reverse flow of water back into the low-lying sections of the SLEX at-grade network, effectively turning the highway into a retention basin. The tollway operators have defended their infrastructure, stating that their internal pumping stations and drainage grates are operating at maximum capacity. However, they emphasize that no amount of internal engineering can compensate for a situation where the external receiving channels are completely blocked. Conversely, local government critics argue that major highway construction and the ongoing expansions of the elevated skyway system have altered the natural flow of water, trapping runoff within the highway boundaries without providing sufficient alternative escape routes. In response to the developing crisis, the SLEX traffic management team has issued an urgent advisory strongly advising all motorists to completely avoid the Bicutan area until further notice. Light vehicles, including subcompact cars, sedans, and compact SUVs, are strictly prohibited from attempting to pass through the flooded at-grade segments, as numerous vehicles have already suffered severe engine damage and electrical failures after attempting to brave the waters. As the afternoon progresses, weather forecasts indicate that while the heaviest downpours have temporarily eased, intermittent rain and thunderstorms are expected to persist into the evening. This prolonged wet weather complicates efforts to clear the flooded areas, as the ground is thoroughly saturated and the regional drainage network remains filled to maximum capacity. DPWH maintenance crews, equipped with heavy-duty industrial vacuum trucks and backhoes, are working alongside local municipal engineering teams to clear the most critical blockages in the outfall creeks near the Bicutan exit. Emergency teams are focused on removing large debris, plastic waste, and silt that are preventing the floodwaters from draining toward the lake.
Oh, apit na sa tuhod ang baha, guys.
Ano, babayon mo!
Sige. Naway mga samad.